distinguished Victorian jurist James Fitzjames Stephen observed,
"The minority gives way not because it is convinced that it is wrong, but because it is convinced that it is a minority."
the so-called War Party seemed to have been an exception to this rule. Its members were fully aware that their political rivals greatly outnumbered them, but were entirely indifferent to the fact. Their numbers varied, but never exceeded 24. And although they cut across the grain of public opinion, they never doubted the righteousness and the eventual success of their cause. War Party militants simply took it for granted that the majority would eventually catch up with them. They never called themselves by that name. War Party, at times even War Dogs, were epithets that their political rivals devised. Here again, labels can be confusing. The War Party was never a real political establishment like the Democrats or Whigs. David B. Edward, a contemporary, called it the War Faction. But even that designation fails to fully explain its function. Truthfully, it was a radical cabal, a band of dissidents joined in a covert scheme to advance their private views. More often than not, they employed intrigue to achieve their ends. Few outside their circle were privy to their means. But what were those ends? Their opposition to Stephen F. Austin's policy of patient accommodation defined the members of this group. In its stead, they called for, nay, demanded, an uncompromising posture in transactions with Saltillo and Mexico City. Since so many of them were speculators, they pushed for a more liberal land policy. All favored disconnection from Coahuila. If Mexican officials refused to sanction the separation, the War Party would compel the break. The clique promoted cultural and political pluralism, a circumstance in which Texas would be a self-governing commonwealth. Indeed, nearly all Texans, even those of a more moderate stripe, believed that the Constitution of 1824 had pledged such an arrangement. What the cabal desired was loose affiliation with Mexico, but not adherence to its laws, traditions, and values. If citizens of, say, Jalisco wanted to accept the injunctions of Mexico City, fine. But Texans would live as they pleased, as they and their forebears always had. As early as 1832, some of the more radical War Party firebrands were already plotting to seize Texas from Mexico and annex it to the United States. The War Party may never have numbered more than 24 men, but they were 24 of the most persuasive, eloquent, and unwavering individuals in Texas. They were, for the most part, youthful, unmarried, fervently pro-slavery, and frequently boorish in their certitude. It has always proven difficult for young men in a hurry to embrace restraint. The partners in the War Party hailed from various backgrounds, but a disdain for the Mexican government and their patriotic zeal united them. The Wharton brothers, William H. and John A., were the heart of the fraternity, so much so that many Texians called it the Wharton faction. A native of Virginia, William moved to Texas in 1826. John joined him there later, arriving between 1829 and 1833. Unlike most of his war party fellows, William was a married man, and he married well. He won the hand of Sarah Ann Gross. His bride was the daughter of Jared Gross, the most prosperous planter in Texas, who presented the happy couple with 4 leagues of land as a wedding present. Among other prominent war party participants was Branch T. Archer. Also a son of Virginia, Archer had killed his cousin in a pistol duel in 1828. Arriving in Texas in 1831, he lived in Brazoria, where he was instrumental in organizing a Masonic lodge. At the age of 15, Georgian Robert McAlpin Williamson contracted tuberculous arthritis. The disease caused his right leg to permanently bend at a 90-degree angle. But physicians fastened a wooden leg to his knee, allowing him to stomp about. Subsequently, he acquired the nickname Three-Legged Willie. He did not allow his disability to hinder him. At the tender age of 19, he passed the Georgia bar and practiced law for 1 year in his home state. In June 1827, Williamson arrived in San Felipe de Austin. A talented journalist, in 1829, he co-founded the newspaper The Cotton Plant. Shortly thereafter, he became the first prosecuting attorney for San Felipe. But printing ink was in his blood. Next, he edited the newspapers the Texas Gazette and the Mexican Citizen. His fiery editorials against the Mexican government earned him acclaim as the Patrick Henry of Texas. When he came to Texas in 1830, James Bowie was already famous, and some said notorious, for his exploits, some of which involved his gargantuan knife. Bowie became a Mexican citizen and, like his friend William Wharton, married up. On April 25th, 1831, the 35-year-old Bowie wed the 19-year-old Maria Ursula de Veramende, the daughter of the province's vice governor and head of one of the leading Bayer families. Bowie spoke fluent Spanish and seemed to admire the Tejano culture and people, but he could not abide the Mexican government. In 1832, he involved himself in the Battle of Nacogdoches and established himself as a leader in the war party. When he landed in Texas in May 1831, William Barrett Travis listed his marital status as single. The truth was, however, that he had fled Alabama just ahead of the debt collector. In the process, he abandoned his infant son and his wife, who was pregnant now with his daughter. He opened a law practice in Anahuac and helped organize a militia company to oppose centralist rule. In 1832, he became a central figure in the violent uprising in Anahuac. His actions earned him the ire of Texian moderates, and he later had to print a public apology for his involvement in the carnage. Yet, in his heart, he remained unrepentant. As he explained to a cohort,
"We must wait patiently for the moving of the waters. The course of events will inevitably tend to the right point, and the people will understand their rights, yea, and assert them too.
In the fall of 1832, the most famous member of the war party had not yet arrived in Texas. Highly respected as a hero of the Creek War, Sam Houston won election as Tennessee's youngest executive in 1827. In 1829, following the disintegration of his first marriage, he resigned as governor and relocated to Arkansas Territory, where he became infamous among his Cherokee friends as Big Drunk. In 1832, Houston, on a Washington, D.C. boulevard, publicly whipped a U.S. congressman who had slandered him. A judge found Houston guilty of assault. If Houston had risen to great heights, he had fallen even further. For many American immigrants, Texas had been the land of beginning again. And John A. Wharton supposed that Houston might be in need of such a haven. In June 1832, he wrote the discredited champion, urging him to shift to the troubled province.
I gave Dr. Branch T. Archer of Virginia a letter of introduction to you. Dr. Archer has been in Texas for upwards of 12 months, is intimately acquainted with matters and things there, and is in the confidence of all their leading men. He is of the opinion that there will be some fighting there next fall, and that a fine country will be gained without much bloodshed. He is very desirous that you should go there, and believes that you can be of more service than any other man. Texas does undoubtedly present a fine field for fame, enterprise, and usefulness, and wherever they are ready for action, I will be with them. You can let Mr. Jackson and our friends, such as you wish, see this letter.
Mr. Jackson was, of course, President Andrew Jackson. Seduced by the solicitation, Houston left for Texas in December 1832. He arrived as an agent provocateur and immediately threw in with the Wharton faction. And it would be as its envoy that he would represent Nacogdoches in the convention of 1833.